Moses and Elijah, Preserved Witnesses and Mortal Testimony. A text-driven Bible study. Introduction. This study does not ask the reader to accept conclusions first. It invites careful observation of Scripture and allows patterns to emerge naturally. The Bible often teaches by placement rather than explanation. It places people, events, and details side by side across time and expects the reader to notice consistency rather than forcing interpretation. Moses and Elijah repeatedly appear at decisive moments in redemptive history. Scripture does not explicitly name them as the two witnesses in Revelation, yet it describes those witnesses in ways already familiar elsewhere in the Bible. What follows is a careful walk through the text, allowing Scripture to speak plainly, and allowing reason to follow rather than lead. Elijah was taken alive, death delayed, not described. And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire, and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. 2 Kings 2:11. Scripture records Elijah's departure from the earth, but does not record his death. Later Scripture states, "It is appointed unto men once to die." Hebrews 9:27. The text does not require that this appointment occur immediately, nor does it state that God cannot delay it for his own purposes. In Elijah's case, Scripture records the taking, but leaves the matter of death unresolved. Nothing in the passage describes Elijah as glorified. The text records movement, not transformation. This leaves open a biblical category already present elsewhere: a living body preserved for a later purpose, not yet passed through death or resurrection. 2. Moses' body. Death recorded, corruption unexplained. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, and he buried him in a valley. But no man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this day. Deuteronomy 34:5-6. Moses' death is stated plainly. Yet Scripture draws unusual attention to what happened afterward, especially concerning his body. That attention appears again. Yet Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses. Jude 1:9. Scripture does not explain why this dispute occurred. It simply records that it did. Throughout Scripture, disputes involve bodies, authority, and legal claim, not souls. If Moses' body had already returned fully to dust with no future role, the reason for dispute is left unexplained. Scripture already provides a category for such a case. Lazarus died, yet was raised back into mortality. His death was real, but corruption was not final. Moses fits within this biblical framework without requiring added explanation. Death occurred, but Scripture does not say corruption completed its course. 3. Moses and Elijah appear together with Jesus. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias talking with him. Matthew 17:3. This account is recorded in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. The text states without embellishment, "And Moses and Elijah appear together." They are recognizable. And they are speaking. Jesus alone is transfigured. Nothing in the passage describes Moses or Elijah as glorified. No change, radiance, or transformation is attributed to them. Afterward, Jesus says, "Tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead." Matthew 17:9. Scripture often uses the word vision to describe a revealed encounter involving real people and real events. The text treats Moses and Elijah as actual participants, not symbols. They appear as witnesses alongside Christ, while transformation and glory are reserved for him alone. 4. Revelation 11. Testimony that ends in death. "And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy." Revelation 11:3. Revelation does not name the witnesses, but it describes them precisely. These have power to shut heaven, that it rain not, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues, Revelation 11:6. These actions are already associated elsewhere in Scripture with Elijah and Moses. The passage then states, "And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast shall overcome them and kill them." Revelation 11:7. Their death is described physically, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street. Revelation 11:8. After 3.5 days, the Spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood upon their feet. Revelation 11:11. Elsewhere Jesus teaches, "Neither can they die any more." Luke 20:36. The text places these statements side by side without commentary. The witnesses are killed, yet glorified beings cannot die. Revelation leaves the reader to observe how these truths relate. Preservation without aging, a necessary middle category. Scripture distinguishes between death, corruption, and resurrection. Christ declares, "I have the keys of hell and of death." Revelation 1:18. Death, therefore, is governed. Its effects are not automatic or identical in every case. Elijah was taken alive. Moses' body was disputed. Both appear alive centuries later. Both must still be mortal in order to be killed in Revelation 11. For all of these statements to remain true at once, Scripture allows a preserved mortal state. Neither glorified nor decaying, not aging in the ordinary sense, yet still subject to death at God's appointed time. This is not introduced as doctrine. It is the only category that allows all recorded facts to stand without contradiction. Illustrative note: time and testimony in Scripture. Scripture routinely spans centuries without pause. Covenants, promises, and witnesses move across generations as though time itself were secondary. Moses speaks of events before his birth, during his life, and long after his death. Elijah appears, disappears, and reappears without Scripture ever emphasizing elapsed years. If Moses and Elijah are preserved until a final testimony, Scripture does not treat the length of that preservation as extraordinary, only purposeful. One day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. The statement is not technical. It reorients perspective. Scripture trains the reader to think in terms of purpose, rather than duration. 6. Clarifying biblical body states. Scripture recognizes multiple bodily conditions: mortal, subject to death and decay; preserved mortal, alive or restored; corruption restrained; resurrected mortal, raised, yet able to die again, e.g., Lazarus, be glorified, raised, and no longer able to die. Neither can they die any more. Luke 20:36. Revelation 11 requires the witnesses to be killable. This alone excludes a glorified state prior to their death. Senten. Answering the objections. Objection 1. Moses died, so his body must have corrupted. Scripture distinguishes death from corruption. David is both dead and buried, and his sepulchre is with us unto this day. Acts 2:29. David died and corrupted. Christ died and did not. Moses' case is left unexplained, not resolved. Objection 2. Hebrews 9:27 rules this out. Hebrews 9:27 states a general appointment, not a timeline. Scripture itself records delayed deaths and multiple deaths. Objection 3. The Transfiguration was only a vision. Scripture uses vision language for real encounters. Moses and Elijah speak, are recognized, and appear bodily. Objection 4. Glorified bodies can't die. Correct, which supports, rather than weakens, the requirement that the witnesses remain mortal until Revelation 11. Objection 5. Only Jesus avoids corruption. Christ is the first fruits, not the limit. Christ the first fruits. Afterward, they that are Christ's. 1 Corinthians 15:23. Others may follow his pattern without equaling his position. 8. The Enoch question. By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death. Hebrews 11:5. Enoch is translated, But Scripture never reintroduces him, since he performs no signs, and he bears no covenant role. He never appears with Christ. He is never associated with revelation imagery. Replacing Moses with Enoch would remove the law from the final testimony and break the law, prophet's witness, already confirmed on the Mount. Scripture completes patterns it establishes. It does not revise them at the end. Acts a reflective closing, not doctrine. Scripture does not tell us every internal detail. It tells us what is necessary. Yet Scripture consistently honors those who endure faithfully to the end. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer shame for his name. Scripture never says Moses and Elijah were offered a choice. It never says they chose death. So this is not doctrine. But Scripture does show what kind of faith God has always honored. And when the witnesses finish their testimony, God answers not with silence, but with resurrection. Final conclusion. This study does not demand agreement. It invites observation. Elijah was taken alive. Moses' body was disputed. Both appeared alive with Jesus. Both uniquely match the signs of the witnesses. Both must still be mortal in order to die. Both are raised and vindicated by God. Christ alone holds the keys of death. Christ alone is glorified first. And every witness law, prophet, or apostle ultimately points to him. This is not Scripture forced. It is Scripture allowed to finish what it began.